Most AI tools live inside a chat box where you ask a question, you get an answer, and then you do the work yourself. So, Claude Cowork changes that model completely. Instead of just generating suggestions, it can organize your files, it can run applications, connect to your software, and execute real tasks directly on your computer. This is not about writing better emails or brainstorming ideas faster. No, it's about delegating actual work, the kind that you would normally manage across task managers, research tools, and automation platforms. So Claude Cowork can replace large parts of that stack because it does not just tell you what to do next. It creates a plan, executes it step by step, and shows you the progress. So that is the real shift here. Cloud Chat works, Cloud Code builds, and Claude Cowork well works. So in this tutorial, I'm going to show you exactly how it's different and why that difference matters and how to use it safely and effectively. Because when an AI can take action on your machine, you need to understand how to stay in control. Before we dive in, if you do want to master Claude Cowork in just 2 hours instead of spending weeks figuring it out all on your own, I do have a complete Claude Cowork Pro program and community with everything that you're going to need. The link's in the description down below. But first, let's get you started with the basics here. Most people confuse the 3 Claude tools, but each one has a completely different role, and if you mix them up, you're going to end up using the wrong tool for the job. So, Claude Chat is your thinking partner. It's built for brainstorming, research, summaries, and Q&A. Just ask a question, and it will respond. Does not touch your computer, access your files, or run your apps. It stays inside that chat interface, which is an important limitation to understand. Claude Code is designed for developers. It builds applications, writes scripts, runs code, and helps fix bugs. If you ship software, it's incredibly powerful, but you still have to guide everything inside a development environment. It does not organize your folders, check your Gmail, or manage your calendar. It operates strictly within the world of code. Now, Claude Cowork is the bridge between thinking and execution. It connects AI intelligence to real actions on your machine. It can access approved files, connect to applications, plan workflows, and execute tasks step by step. And unlike traditional chatbots, it can also run multiple tasks in parallel, which fundamentally changes how work gets done. But what makes Cowork extraordinary? Well, let's raise the stakes here. Imagine telling your AI to organize a folder and watching it actually do it. So let's say you typed "organize this folder" and it created folders. It sorts files and handles duplicates without you dragging and dropping in a single item. So that's real computer control. Coworks with permission-based file system access, meaning you need to approve specific folders and it processes them in batches, and that alone can save hours every single week. But it goes further with software integrations. Once connected to tools like, say, Google Calendar, Drive, Gmail, or GitHub, it doesn't just read information. You can schedule your meetings, draft replies, move files, and update documents. So at this point, it's already replacing parts of traditional automation tools, but the real deal here isn't how it plans and executes. Most AI tools generate suggestions and then leave the action to you, while Claude Cowork creates a plan, shows it to you, and then executes it step by step while displaying progress. And all you have to do is supervise instead of micromanage, which changes how work feels. Then there's multitasking. Cowork can run tasks in the background while you continue working. It can research competitors, clean up files, and draft emails at the same time. However, if you do overload it without any structure, performance slows down, and that's one of the most common beginner mistakes. But we're going to go ahead and fix that later. Right now, you already know the difference with the 3. But understanding is one thing. Using it properly is another, and that's where most beginners mess up. Before you get excited, let's go ahead and talk about the limits, because there are a few, and if you skip this part, you will get stuck. So, the first requirement is that you need a paid subscription. Claude Cowork is not available on free accounts, so you will need Pro or Max to unlock it, and that part is non-negotiable. The question is, whether is it worth paying for? And the simplest way to think about it is this. If Cowork replaces even 2 tools you already pay for, the subscription usually makes sense. But we'll let you decide once you've seen what it can actually do. And the second requirement here is device support. You need the Cloud Desktop app on a Mac or the latest version of Windows, because Claude Cowork is designed to operate at the desktop level where it can interact with files and applications. And once you do have the right plan and the right device, setup is straightforward. Download the Claude Desktop app, install it like any other normal application, open it up, and sign in. So here's where beginners usually get kind of confused. They expect Cowork to appear automatically the moment that they log in, but it doesn't. You have to switch modes manually. So look at the top navigation and click the Cowork tab. And that single click is what turns regular chat mode into execution mode. And it's a small button with a huge impact because if you miss it, nothing you try will work the way you expect. So the next step is permissions. And this is where you need to slow down. The first time you open up Cowork, it's going to ask you what it's allowed to access, including folders, apps, and other controls. Do not grant everything just because it's faster. Give it access only to what you need for the task you're doing because you can always expand permissions later. And controlled access is what keeps this powerful tool safe and predictable. So now that the setup is clear, let's open up Cowork properly and walk through the interface because that is the next place most people just feel overwhelmed, and it is completely avoidable once you understand what you are looking at. So first look at the interface, and if you've ever opened up a new tool and felt slightly overwhelmed by the interface, well, you're not alone. Most productivity software looks simple at first, but once you do start clicking around, it is easy to wander off and wonder where everything lives and what you're actually supposed to do next. So now open up Claude and switch into Cowork mode. So here at first glance, the interface looks clean and minimal, and in the center you'll see the main chat window, and this is where you will type your tasks. But this is not a casual conversation. Cowork expects instructions, clear tasks, and actionable goals. You're not chatting for ideas, you're assigning work. On the left side, you'll find the task management sidebar. So this is where every task appears, whether it's currently running, it's queued up, or completed. So think of this as your control tower. You can see what's in progress, what's waiting, and what's finished. You can also run multiple tasks at the same time, which is powerful, but careless multitasking creates confusion quickly, and we'll address how to manage that properly. On the right side here, you'll see the artifacts and context panels. This is where outputs live. So reports, spreadsheets, drafts, and structured data don't disappear into a scrolling chat history. They just become persistent here. Usable assets that you can open, refine, and export. And that alone makes Cowork feel fundamentally different from traditional AI replies. As tasks run, you'll also notice progress indicators such as spinning icons, step counters, and completion markers. So this is where something important happens. You'll begin to trust the system because you can see the plan, you can watch the execution, and you can monitor results in real time. So transparency builds confidence. So one thing most people overlook is this. If you give vague instructions, the interface feels slow and unfocused. If you give structured goals with clear outcomes, it feels extremely efficient. So the difference comes from the clarity of your input. Now we're going to test your file. So most people hesitate at this part because giving an AI access to your folders feels risky, right? And that hesitation is actually a good sign. It means you are thinking about control and boundaries instead of blindly clicking allow. So the first step is to grant access to a specific folder, not your entire drive. So start small. Choose a single folder, maybe your downloads folder or your desktop folder, and approve access only to that location. And that's it. Cowork cannot access anything you don't explicitly authorize. And that permission-based boundary is part of how it stays predictable. So once access is granted, give it a simple command like organize this folder cleanly and create folders for the loose files. And then watch what happens. It doesn't immediately start moving files. First, it will scan the folder, then it will create a plan, and after that, it begins structuring. So documents are grouped together, images go into their own folder, videos are separated, and archives are categorized properly. It's not random movement here. It's an actual structured organization, and this is where batch processing becomes powerful. So like instead of dragging and dropping 200 files all manually, you just give one instruction and Cowork handles the rest by creating folders, sorting your files, and then moving them into place. And in practical terms, that can easily save 1 to 2 hours a week for a lot of us. There's another important detail also. If file names are chaotic or ambiguous, Cowork may pause and ask for confirmation before proceeding. It does not blindly guess. It evaluates context, applies logical grouping rules, and then executes. Alright, so now open up your downloads folder and be honest with yourself here. It's probably chaotic, right? Screenshots mixed with random PDFs, installers still sitting next to duplicate images, old exports that we just forgot about months ago. And at one point, mine had over 1,000 files. I'm embarrassed about it. And that's usually where small mistakes turn into complete clutter. But now, watch closely here. Type in organize this folder by file type, and notice what happens next. It doesn't immediately start moving files around. Rather, it generates a plan first. And then that plan appears in the sidebar over here, and this becomes your safety net. You review it, you approve it, and only then does execution begin. So the first phase is categorization. Files are grouped by type with images all grouped together, documents together, installers together, and so on. And then it starts detecting patterns. So for example, screenshots will be grouped by month instead of being dumped into one generic folder. And that's structured sorting, not random rearranging here. Next comes folder creation. So instead of meaningless labels like folder 1, it creates logical readable names such as archives or documents or images and videos. Structure matters, especially when you come back weeks later trying to find something quickly. So what makes this feel powerful is the real-time progress tracking. You can actually see files moving, step counters updating, and completion percentages rising. It really feels less like blind automation and more like supervising a junior assistant who reports every action. So now imagine running this weekly. Your downloads folder always stays organized automatically. Your workspace stays clean and orderly, and you avoid that mental friction of digital clutter. So that's cognitive relief. But this is still local file management. So far, Cowork is only working inside a single folder. In the next section, we're going to connect it to your broader software stack. And that is where things will be significantly more powerful. Alright, so let's go ahead and move from file management to your entire workflow. And this is where it stops feeling like just a helpful organizer and starts feeling genuinely powerful. Open the integrations panel here and you'll see built-in connectors such as Gmail, Google Drive, and Google Calendar, along with other supported apps. So these are native integrations. They're not workarounds or browser hacks. When you click Gmail, for example, you'll go through the standard Google authorization flow. Just sign in, approve access, and that's it. Once connected, Cowork can read your emails or draft replies for you. It does not automatically send messages unless you explicitly approve them, which is an important safeguard here. And the same principle applies to Google Drive. So Cowork can search your files. It can summarize your documents, move folders, and generate reports directly inside your real Drive account. So this is working within your actual environment. Calendar integration is where things start to feel extremely practical too. You can type something like, say, schedule a meeting with John next week, and Cowork will check availability. It'll suggest time slots and draft the calendar invite, review it, approve it, and the meeting is scheduled now. And that single workflow replaces multiple manual steps. And one thing I want you to keep in mind, though, is to only connect what you actually need. If you connect everything, you're then increasing your risk surface unnecessarily. If you connect too little, well, then you limit what Cowork can do. So that balance between access and control is what makes the system both powerful and responsible. So now that you've seen native integrations in action, we're going to go one level deeper now into expanded connectivity. Alright, so now it's time to move into something more technical, but stay with me here because this is where flexibility expands dramatically. So MCP stands for Model Context Protocol, and the easiest way to think about it is as a sort of bridge. It allows Claude Cowork to connect to tools that don't have built-in native integrations. And this matters because not every platform offers an official connector. With MPC, though, you're not limited to just Gmail or Google Drive. We can potentially connect CRM, custom dashboards, internal company tools, or other services as long as there is an MCP server available for them. So, where do you find these MCP connectors? Developers often host MCP servers publicly, and some communities share them as well. And typically, you can search for the name of the tool followed by MCP server, and that's it. Availability does vary, and not every tool supports it, so you always need to verify compatibility before attempting to connect. So for example here I connected Notion using its remote MCP server URL, and after connecting it behaves similarly to a native integration. I can query data, retrieve information, and trigger workflows directly inside of that platform. And this means that Cowork is no longer limited to official partnerships. It now becomes expandable. That's the hidden advantage of MCP here because now you're not waiting for a company to release an official integration. If an MCP bridge exists, you can connect it yourself. And that level of flexibility is something most AI tools simply do not offer. And we're still just building the foundation. And this is one of the wild parts of Claude Cowork. It's not limited to APIs or structured integrations. It can also actively navigate web pages and gather information when needed. Cowork can open up pages, read content, and even adjust output based on the format that you request, whether that's a summary, a comparison table, or a structured report. And it typically uses this capability when no official API exists, or when web-based search is required. So for example, you could say research the top competitors in the cryptocurrency niche, and from there it navigates relevant sites, reads pages, extracts key insights, and compiles everything into a structured report. And this all happens in the background. You're not jumping between tabs or manually copying information. What makes this especially powerful is that it runs in controlled sessions using background browsers, which means your main browsing session remains untouched. You maintain that separation and stability, while Cowork handles the research workload all behind the scenes. But what can you realistically do with this? Features are interesting, but use cases are what justify the tool. So, we'll start with something simple and practical. And think of it this way. You have a 20-minute YouTube video. Most creators upload it once and then move on, leaving a lot of potential value unused. Instead, you can let Cowork handle the repurposing workflow. You can tell it turn this into 10 short clips, and it will pull the transcript, identify strong hooks, select high retention segments, and suggest timestamps for each short clip. And that's a first layer of leverage. Then you can raise a bar by saying optimize each clip for TikTok and Reels. And then Cowork will generate platform-specific caption, short attention-grabbing hooks, and relevant hashtags. Normally, this requires manual editing, rewriting, and formatting across multiple tools, and it now becomes a structured workflow handled in one place. So that covers content repurposing at a practical level. But content is only one side of the equation. Most business work doesn't fail because of bad ideas. It slows down because of execution. Research takes time. Formatting takes time, and turning scattered information into something presentation-ready takes even more time. You know what I mean? And that's especially true when you're launching a product and you suddenly need a pitch deck, a media kit, and a market analysis all at once. So, as usual, instead of building everything manually, well, we can just give a structured instruction something like this. Research my competitors in cryptocurrency news and create a 10-slide pitch deck. And then it will gather relevant data, summarize trends, analyze positioning, and build a structured slide outline with clear bullet points. And that's not just idea generation, that's execution. And once the draft is ready, you can refine it further by saying, make this investor ready, and that's it. Cowork will then adjust the tone, clean up the layout, and then standardize the structure, and will remove any unnecessary filler, and the result will be more polished and aligned with what stakeholders expect. Data gathering will be even more powerful if you guide it properly. We can say something like pull industry statistics and summarize, and then it will look for relevant information, compile findings and cite sources where available. You should always verify critical numbers here, especially financial data, but the research workload is significantly reduced, and that's responsible leverage here. In practical terms, this replaces multiple workflows, a research tool, a slide builder, and a document formatter all operating inside one system. And this is still just one category of use. Financial management is another area where people don't expect AI to be useful, but it often delivers immediate value. So you can start by uploading a credit card statement and then give it a direct instruction like this. Categorize my spending. That's it. Cowork will then analyze the transactions and then group them into logical categories like food, subscriptions, travel, and utilities. There's no need to scan line by line. You just get a clear breakdown within seconds. And then you can take it further by saying generate a monthly expense report. And then it will create a structured spreadsheet-style table with categories included and totals calculated all automatically. So then there's no need to build formulas manually or reorganize raw data yourself. And at this point, you've seen content automation, business reporting, and expense management handled inside one environment. And that already replaces parts of editing tools, research platforms, and budget trackers even. And we're still operating at a beginner level. And the real upgrade comes next with plugins, skills, and reusable workflows. And that's where Cowork moves beyond reacting to instructions and starts scaling your systems. At a certain point, using Cowork task by task will start to feel repetitive. You give an instruction, it executes, and you move on. And that works, but it doesn't scale. The real change happens when you stop thinking in single tasks and start thinking in systems. And that's where plugins and skills come in. Plugins extend Cowork's capabilities in focused ways, so you can think of them as sort of specialized modules that handle specific types of work, such as marketing analysis, financial modeling, or customer support workflows. So when you open the plugin manager, you'll see official Anthropic plugins that can be installed with a single click. There's no coding required, and activation takes seconds. Once installed, you can trigger them directly. So for example, you can type "use the marketing plugin to audit this campaign," and from there, the plugin will activate a structured workflow and produce organized output. Finance plugins can forecast revenue, analyze margins, and model growth scenarios. Customer support plugins can summarize tickets. They can detect sentiment trends and generate response drafts. So the goal here is to reduce repetitive labor by applying predefined expertise instantly. Some plugins also include shortcut commands, so typing a specific keyword launches the workflow automatically. However, plugins are still predefined solutions designed for common patterns. Your workflow might be more specific or unique, and that's where the cloud skill system becomes important. Skills are reusable workflows rather than one-off prompts. A regular prompt can say, "Analyze this email campaign." A skill can turn that into a full multi-step system that handles data extraction, scoring, recommendations, and report generation automatically. The difference is structure and repeatability. There are also community-created skills available through marketplaces such as, say, SkillHub, although availability does change over time and should always be verified before installing. Some skills are free, others are paid, and together they create an expanding ecosystem around Cowork. So, the real leverage comes from building your own custom skills. If you find yourself repeating the same sequence, say research, summarization, building slides, formatting, just stop running it manually. Turn it into a reusable system. Go to Settings, select Capabilities, and scroll to the Skills section. And from here, you can add or create skills tailored to your workflow. Beginners can start by exploring example skills and adapting what fits to their needs. This is not just about speeding up tasks. It's about scaling yourself. And the only caution is to avoid creating too many overlapping skills, which can introduce clutter. Just keep them focused and refined over time. At this stage, plugins extend your power. Skills multiply your efficiency, and custom skills create leverage. The next step is moving beyond explanation and running complete demonstrations from start to finish where the difference becomes obvious. Enough of the theories. Now it's time to move beyond explanations and test complete workflows from start to finish. Real business scenarios reveal whether a system is genuinely useful or just impressive in theory. So for the first one here, think like you're launching a new SAS product and you need immediate market clarity. Instead of hiring multiple consultants or spending days compiling research manually, you will assign the task directly to Cowork. So let's start with the prompt "Analyze this website" and produce a business report. Cowork then begins by extracting pricing details, core features, positioning strategy, and audience targeting. It compiles that information into a structured summary and then next instruct it to identify the top 5 competitors, and it will then look for alternatives, compare features, and highlight positioning gaps. So much of this research can run in parallel, which significantly increases efficiency. To validate the opportunity, you can say "Assess market opportunity," and Cowork will gather industry signals, analyze search demand patterns, and evaluate competitive density. Any hard numbers should always be verified, of course, independently, especially financial projections, because again, responsible oversight remains essential here. Finally instructed to generate a professional business report, and from that it will consolidate the research, add clear headings, draft an executive summary, and close with a structured conclusion. So now let's take a look at marketing. Imagine, say, you run a podcast with 50 published episodes, but growth has plateaued. First, just upload the transcripts or connect your storage and begin analysis. Let's start with this prompt. Analyze this transcript, and then Cowork processes recurring themes, measures keyword frequency, clusters related topics, and identifies common audience questions. Pattern detection starts immediately. Next, just instruct it to identify content gaps, and it will then highlight repeated themes, overused angles, and underexplored topics, revealing strategic blind spots. Then move to idea generation with this prompt. Generate 20 new episode ideas, and Cowork will align suggestions with audience behavior and produce structured titles with concise summaries. To operationalize it, you can finish with this prompt. Create a 3-month content calendar, and it will space topics logically. Balance your themes, avoid repetition, and it will export a structured schedule ready for implementation. And right now, business strategy, content planning, and marketing optimization are executed through structured workflows without constant tab switching or tool fragmentation. However, Real productivity isn't about completing one task perfectly. It's about managing multiple priorities at the same time because deadlines overlap, emails keep coming in, and research never fully stops. Here, Cowork either becomes truly useful or simply another tool in the stack. To test this properly, we will start 2 tasks at once. We're going to tell it research competitors for cryptocurrency news and then add organize this financial spreadsheet. So, watch the sidebar here as both processes run simultaneously. This isn't artificial multitasking where one task pauses while the other runs. Instead, Korg distributes the workload and continues processing in the background while you type new instructions. And we can raise the pressure here by adding a third task, say draft an investor summary. And you'll notice it queues intelligently and then prioritizes based on structure. You can manually reorder tasks if needed, so control always remains with you. One of the most valuable features here is memory and context retention. Cowork remembers previous steps, reference documents, and earlier conclusion, so you don't have to restate the entire background every time you assign a new instruction. So that reduces cognitive load and keeps workflows moving efficiently. So think of this happening daily. Competitor research running in the background, files being organized automatically, and a draft being